Happy New Year, everybody, and in honor of 2024 coming to a close, I'm going to be ranking every single movie that I watched last year using a tier list. I did the exact same thing with 2023, and now I'm doing it with 2024. I think this is just going to have to be a tradition at this point. And these are all the movies that are being included onto the list. It's in total of 22 movies, just so you know and are aware of every movie that's being included. So if you want to pause and look, it's 22 movies, and it's going to be a pretty long video. So let's get started talking about the first movie that I watched in 2024, which was Blumhouse's Night Swim. What a horrible start for the year this was. Night Swim was pure garbage. I mean, the story was generic, the scares were generic, the characters were generic, the acting was generic, the ending was generic, everything about this movie was generic, there was nothing fun about it, and Blumhouse really tried to make a swimming pool scary, and they failed really fucking badly. I am never watching this shit again. It was trash. Putting it in D. Fully deserved. Hated Night Swim. Do not recommend. But it gets even better because moving on to the next movie is Madame Web. Now, don't get me wrong. This movie is really bad and it shouldn't exist. And I'll never understand why Sony made a fucking Madame Web movie. But it was better than Night Swim because it at least had some really dumb fun moments, like the Spider-Man Terminator villain with bad ADR. That was pretty funny. Sydney Sweeney in a Spider-Girl suit for like 2 seconds. Like, what the fuck? A whole tribe of spider people at the beginning of the movie. All of the acting, particularly from Dakota Johnson, all that was really funny. This is a funny movie. It's still bad and I'm still putting it in D and it shouldn't exist. But I did like it more than Night Swim because it had some really funny moments, especially if you are a Spider-Man fan. You will get a kick out of this, of how bad it is. It's got some funny moments, but it's still bad. And Sony, I don't know what you were thinking with this movie, like, what the fuck. But moving on to the next movie, which is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I did not like this movie. I only watched it because I watched the previous movie, like, many years ago. I found it very forgettable, and I didn't really like it, and I think I hated this movie even more. I didn't like it. I found it forgettable, boring. I almost fell asleep throughout the entire movie, and I just wanted it to end, and yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you anything about this movie because it's genuinely that forgettable. Third act gets a little crazy with the OG cast and the new characters, and that's all I can say, and I didn't like this movie, and I think I'm just done with Ghostbusters, so I'm just gonna put this movie in C. It was fucking forgettable. I didn't like it. But yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. Really liked Godzilla vs. Kong, so I was very much looking forward to this movie, and it was, okay. It was fine. It was, I mean, the monster stuff was cool. Kong, Godzilla, they were really cool, and Kong has like a son-ish now, I guess, that he hangs out with throughout the entire movie, and Godzilla turns pink, which is like, sure, so, you know, all the action, and the third act, it gets really fun, it's cool stuff. CGI looks great, but the humans, they were really annoying and boring, and I couldn't stand them, and kind of ruined the movie for me a bit, but other than that, it was okay. It was fine. I'll put it in B. It was okay. I didn't like it as much as the last movie, but it was fine. Moving on to the next movie, which is Abigail. When I heard this was coming from the directors who did Ready or Not and the previous 2 Scream movies, I was like, alright, let's check this out. Let's see what they're doing with this. And for the most part, I really enjoyed this movie. The trailers did kind of ruin it for me a bit because, you know, like the first half of the movie is just like, oh, what's going on? How are these characters getting killed off? Who's doing this? And I'm like, I've seen the trailers. It's the little girl and she's a vampire. I know what's going on. So that did kind of ruin the movie a little bit for me. But other than that, if you ignore that, then the movie is a good time. And the actress who plays as Abigail, the little girl, is really good, and the third act gets very bloody, very fucking bloody. If you are a sick fuck who loves blood and horror movies, then you are gonna dig the third act. It's fucking bloody as shit. But yeah, I really enjoyed Abigail. I'll put it in A. It was a good time. And yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is The Fall Guy. Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, bunch of action. I thought this would be a good time, and I didn't like it. I was not a fan of it. I'm sorry. I know this movie has like really good reviews and people seem to like it. Was not a fan of it. I mean, the action was good. Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, they were pretty good. That's it. I mean, I didn't really care for the characters. I didn't care for the humor. I didn't really find any of it funny. It wasn't really my type of humor. Found it forgettable, and I couldn't really tell you much about this movie. Other than that, I mean, I wasn't a fan of it, so I'm just gonna put it in C. So I'm very sorry. I know there's a lot of people who seem to like this movie, and I didn't. I'm sorry. But yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is The Strangers Chapter 1. Oh god, this is meant to be a full-blown trilogy. Oh no, guys, The Strangers Chapter 1 was not good. They really tried to recreate the original Strangers and make it just as scary, if not scarier, and they failed. They really fucking failed. The Strangers themselves were not scary. The acting was not great. I mean, I guess the main actress, she was okay. She was a little whiny, but she was okay, and there were some shots that looked kinda nice, But that's all I can give this movie. It was not good. It was generic. The scares were generic. It was a bad horror movie, and I hope the second and third movie are better, but I have no hope. So yeah, this movie goes in D. It was a terrible recreation of the original Strangers. I don't know what they were thinking, but yeah. Moving on to the next movie, which is Inside Out 2. Man, it felt really weird watching a brand new Pixar movie. I haven't done that in ages. It felt really weird, but Inside Out 2 was good. It was solid. The way they handled the whole growing up side of things with Riley and her anxiety and the having to fit in with others, it was handled very well, and I enjoyed it. The animation was beautiful, and yeah, I mean, I didn't love this movie as much as other people did, but I still liked it, and it was still a solid movie that everyone should watch. You know, adults, teens, kids, and yeah. It's good. It's a good, decent little sequel, so I'll put an A. I liked it, but yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is A Quiet Place Day One. I was so fucking excited for this movie, man. I mean, I really enjoyed the first two Quiet Place movies. The trailers for this really impressed me, and the New York setting, I was like, yes, this is gonna be so cool. After watching it, I thought to myself, okay, I think I might have overhyped it a bit. I mean, it wasn't as amazing as I thought it was gonna be, but it was still a decent watch. The characters were, although nothing too special, they were fine, and the monster stuff was cool, and it looked great, and it was fun to watch in the cinema, but there were some really slow scenes that dragged on a little too long, especially since the movie is also very short. I feel like there were too many slow scenes that dragged on a bit, so that kind of annoyed me, and the ending was kind of spoiled a bit by the trailers, so it wasn't like shocking or anything, but it was fine. It had some cool parts, so I'll put the movie in B. It was okay. It was definitely the weakest of the Quiet Place movies, but it was fine, I guess. Moving on to the next movie, which is In a Violent Nature. This is one of the more unique movies on this list. It's basically like a Friday the 13th type movie, except this time we're basically focusing on the killer entirely. Not the entire time, but we're kind of watching this killer slowly like stalk his victims and kill them and stuff. That's basically the majority of the movie, and I thought I wasn't gonna like it. I thought it was gonna be really slow and boring and nothing was gonna be happening, but I thought it was paced pretty well. I kind of liked it. We're not always focusing on the killer, which I'm kind of glad. I feel like after a while, just seeing this killer just aimlessly walk around, it would have gone kind of boring. But the way they handled these one-take shots of the killer, him stalking the victims and killing them in these really brutal ways, I thought was handled pretty well. And I ended up kind of liking it, and I really liked how unique this movie was. And although the ending was a bit weird, though, I didn't really understand that. That was very strange. But other than that, I had a good time with this movie, and I just liked how unique it was. So I'll put an A. It was not bad. But moving on to the next movie, which is Longlegs. I really thought I was gonna like this movie. Like, people were hyping it up as this really creepy horror movie with Nicolas Cage, and he was like going crazy in this movie, and I really thought I was gonna like it, but I didn't. Other than the opening scene giving me the heebie-jeebies and a certain jump scare that got me pretty well, and some nice shots, and it's a pretty looking movie. I just didn't like it. I thought Nicolas Cage was pretty cringe more than scary, like him screaming in a car, singing happy birthday, and that last line that he said at the very end of the movie, I found it more cringe than scary. Just thinking about it just makes me go, ugh, God, I didn't like Nicolas Cage in this movie, so yeah, I don't know, I'll probably never watch it again. I just found it more boring and cringe than scary. So sorry for the people who fucking love this movie. I didn't, so I'm just gonna put it in C. I didn't despise it, but I didn't like it even. I wasn't a fan. But yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is Deadpool and Wolverine. Of course, I fucking love Deadpool and Wolverine. It was pretty much everything that I hoped it would be. Like, the action was amazing, the humor was on point. All of Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman's scenes together were, I mean, the fighting, the arguing, the bonding, it was all handled really fucking well, and I loved that. The cameos were pretty cool. The villain wasn't very interesting. She was a bit weak, and the third act wasn't as epic as I thought it would be. Other than that, though, really loved Deadpool and Wolverine. I would still come back to it and rewatch it, and it's just so much fun, man. I have to put an S. It was literally everything that I hoped it would be, so I think it deserves an S tier. Come on. But yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is Trap. Not the biggest M. Night Shyamalan fan. He just comes up with these really cool ideas, but his executions always fucking suck, and unfortunately Trap is one of those. I thought I was gonna like this movie. Like, the first act of this movie was pretty cool. I mean, a dad and his daughter at a concert. We find out he's a serial killer, and he has to try to escape this concert before he gets caught. Seemed really cool, and then it just completely falls flat when M. Night is just constantly just relying on his real life daughter in the movie, who is like the singer in the movie at the concert, and that just has the movie drag on for so long, and then she becomes like a main character throughout the entire third act, which is so like, why? And she can barely act as well. And yeah, that was really stupid, and at that point the movie just completely falls flat, and I was like, yep, I do not like this movie. M. Night Shyamalan disappointed me once again. So yeah, this movie goes in C. Did not like it. Disappointing. as fuck. Moving on to the next movie, which is Alien Romulus. As someone who's not the biggest fan of this franchise, I really like this new Alien movie. I mean, there was some, callbacks and some nostalgia bait that people are constantly complaining about with this movie, but I thought it was fine for the most part. There was one line that was said that was from the previous movies, and I was like, okay, now you're starting to push it a bit. But other than that, I was okay with the references. I really enjoyed this movie. There were some really cool scenes, some really creative scenes that were cool but really intense at the same time. Some cool deaths, and that third act gets very crazy. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. That shit gets weird as fuck. And it's coming from the director who did the Evil Dead remake and Don't Breathe, so I'm not surprising that this movie is just creepy and really cool. So yeah, I really like Alien Romulus. I'm giving it a really high A. I surprisingly really enjoyed this movie as someone who isn't really the biggest Alien fan. So yeah, it was really, really cool. But moving on to the next movie, which is Speak No Evil. James McAvoy in a horror movie. That is the only fucking reason I even watched this movie, and the only reason I thought it was actually decent, because he made this movie. Without him, this movie would be pretty shit. I mean, he was creepy, he was funny. I really enjoyed James McAvoy. Everything else about this movie was nothing too special. The characters, they were pretty dumb. The plot twist was super fucking predictable. And without James McAvoy, this movie would be kind of mid. But because of him, I'm putting this movie in B as just okay. I mean, James McAvoy is the only thing that's really good about this movie. Everything else was just not great. But yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is The Substance. I had to watch it. I just had to do it. People were hyping it up like Longlegs, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out and I'll see if it's any good. And thankfully, this movie was really good because of how fucking crazy it is. This movie is complete madness from beginning to end. The two actresses, Demi Moore and the other young actress, they were both really fucking good. And I won't go too deep with this movie, but watch it. It's crazy. It is insane. It is really gross. It is pretty yucky. You probably don't want to eat while watching this movie, but it's just a good movie. It's just weird, but the ending, I mean, that ending was perfect. I'll give it that. The ending, perfection. But yeah, this movie is really fucked up. It is madness, and just do not eat while watching this movie. I recommend that. But yeah, The Substance was surprisingly good. I liked it, so I'm putting it at. It was insane. But yeah, now let's talk about a fucking family-friendly animated kids movie, that being Transformers 1. It was good. It was solid. One of the best things that we've gotten from the Transformers franchise in quite a while. I hope we get a sequel. I really do. This feels like this does really need a sequel. Like the way they handled the origin story with D16 and Orion Pax, it was handled well. The third act goes exactly how you think it would go. It was really cool. Although I think D16's turn into Megatron was maybe a little too abrupt, a little too rushed, but other than that, I thought it was handled really well. Everyone else, Keegan-Michael Key's Bumblebee and Scarlett Johansson's Alita, they were okay, but it was really about Orion Pax and D16 and their friendship, and then turn into hatred. It was handled well, and I hope we get a sequel, like I just said before. So a solid Transformers movie, and I'll put an A. I liked it quite a bit. But yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is, oh boy, Joker Folie à Deux. And it is Folie à Deux, not Folie à Dukes as I used to fucking pronounce it, but still, very, very stupid title. It's not good. It's not a good movie. I mean, it's a pretty well-shot movie. It looks very, very nice. Performances were good, particularly from Joaquin Phoenix, but that's about it, man. I mean, it was very boring. The courtroom stuff was handled pretty poorly. The Arkham stuff was okay, but still wasn't very interesting. Lady Gaga was completely wasted. She did really nothing except sing, but that's a very common thing to see nowadays, to see Lady Gaga sing. It was nothing too special, but yeah, it was just a pretty boring, slow movie, and say what you want about that ending, but yeah, it really just made these two Joker movies feel like a big old waste of time. So yeah, it was Folie à Dukes was not very good. Now I'm putting in C. It's not good. Good job, Todd Phillips. Yeah, good job. Yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is Terrifier 3. Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was exactly what it should be. Fucked up, brutal, violent. Art the Clown goes absolutely bonkers, and sure, it's cool to see characters from the previous movie come back, but the Christmas setting was what really made this movie stand out the most. Like how it's handled, and seeing Art dressed up as Santa and what he does throughout the movie, and I don't know, the Christmas setting is what really made this movie for me. And I definitely enjoyed it a lot more, and I'm, I guess, interested to see what they'll do with Terrifier 4, with the whole lore with these movies, and the fucking sword that we keep constantly seeing. It's a little weird, but I'm interested to see how it's all concluded and done in the next movies, and yeah, this movie's fucked. It's brutal, and that's what it should be, so I'll put an A. I guess that means it's a good movie, I guess, because it's a fucked up freaking brutal and bloody. So yeah, that's what it should be. But yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is Smile 2. I thought the first Smile was fine. It had some intense moments and some scary parts and really good jump scares, and I thought it was a decent little horror movie, and I was looking forward to Smile 2, and I liked it. It does everything what a sequel should do. It feels bigger, probably because the curse is now lashed on to a pop star, so that was handled pretty well, and Naomi Scott absolutely carries this movie. Her performance is kind of what makes this fucking movie work. So yeah, she was really, really good. Really enjoyed her character, and although some of the jump scares in this movie just weren't as strong or done as well as the jump scares in the first movie, I thought it was solid. It did what a sequel should do, and the ending was pretty crazy, although pretty predictable, was very crazy, and I am interested in a Smile 3. So yeah, it was solid. I'll put an A. It was a good time. And yeah, moving on to the next movie, which is Venom: The Last Dance. I thought, fuck it, I went and saw the first two Venom movies, might as well go see the final one with Tom Hardy as the character, and this was easily the weakest of the trilogy, and it made me think, okay, I'm glad this franchise is finally done and over with, hopefully. I mean, Tom Hardy was good, as always. He was crazy as both Eddie and Venom. Some decent action scenes, and yeah, that was about it. I mean, there was really no villain in this movie, if you want to include the Xenophages, but they were the villains, really? Noel's setup was okay, but was kind of wasted now, knowing that they probably aren't going to continue. The third act goes pretty crazy with the symbiote action, and it gets a little emotional with, the stuff with Eddie and Venom, but other than that, yeah, this movie was not great. I'll give it a high C. Had some fun moments, but yeah, it wasn't very good. But moving on to the final movie that I watched in 2024, which of course was Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Just like Deadpool and Wolverine, this movie was pretty much everything that I hoped it would be. And even though I'm not even the biggest Sonic fan, I really like Shadow the Hedgehog. He's easily my favorite character. I really liked him, and he kind of made this movie for me. I'm not even gonna lie. But yeah, I really like Shadow and his backstory, and Keanu Reeves did a really good job. I enjoyed Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and the beautiful action scenes. The CGI looked great. Jim Carrey as the two Robotniks, fucking amazing. Love that. The third act goes absolutely bonkers. The post-credit scenes were very exciting, and this movie was just everything that I hoped it would be. And yeah, I loved it. That's all I have to say. I'm putting an S. I mean, it was just like Deadpool. It's everything that I hoped it would be, and I was already real excited to see this movie, and it was what I hoped it would be. So I think it deserves the S tier. It really does. I love Sonic 3. Amazing. And this is it, guys. This is my tier list ranking of every single movie that I watched in 2024. And overall, it was an okay year for movies. There was some good to great movies and some mid to really bad movies. And overall, it was a bit of a mixed bag year for movies. But here's hope 2025 will be better. And yes, I will be doing a top 10 most anticipated movies of 2025 video. Look out for that. And I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye. And yes, I did not include Kraven the Hunter. Where was Kraven the Hunter? You included Madam Web and Venom 3, but no Kraven. What the fuck, man? Don't worry, I will be reviewing Kraven very, very soon when that comes out digitally. And yeah, I can't wait to see that CGI Rhino fight in all its glory. I couldn't be more excited. Yeah.